Hello, friends. I would like to pose a question to the international community. What is a human being, a nation, or even our planet without its historical and empirical and linguistic memory? The answer may very well be the same as that to the question of what is a computer without its memory? Nothing. Simply nothing. In the case of humans, without cultural or historical memory, we are also nothing more than infertile, empty shells, completely incapable of producing something substantial or of contributing anything beyond toxic defecation, excuse my term, following our unchecked consumer frenzy with which to fill our emptiness, which the world seems to be doing quite well lately. The cornerstone of any civilization, as well as that of every individual, is their accumulated linguistic, empirical, and cultural memory. Delete those three components, and there is no substance whatsoever for a country to function as a unified nation or for an individual to act as a complete human being, an intelligent human being. Meanwhile, the intellectual quality of a people is highly dependent on the historical truths to which they can refer, not only for the sake of their own identity, but also to avoid any repeated mistakes they may have made in the past. What should be noted here is that the very word history, which is an indispensable component of memory, is of Greek origin, literally meaning knowledge. History means knowledge, since the Greek noun histor refers to one who has borne witness to an event and has knowledge of it. The word history is also related to the verb istimi. We have the Greek word stekome, which comes from the verb istimi, which means to stand upon, to stand erect. Hence the Greek word for science, epistemi, to stand on something and study it, stand above something and study it. What is of special interest beyond this root is that all these are derivatives of the root histos, used to broadly mean any supporting tissue or material that provides substance and support. In Greek, the word histos is used to mean connecting tissue. It is also used to mean flagpole, and even the web that a spider spins, for that too needs to have substance. Within the English language, we have scores of its derivatives borrowed from the Greek, such as histology, histamine, histopathology, and others, which relate to animal and plant tissue, tissue compounds, and the study of diseased tissue, respectively. Keeping in mind, therefore, the connective tissue root of the word history and the wisdom behind it, we are led to understand that the histories of all nations comprise the connective tissue of our planet's cultural tapestry. Pretty much the same way our own skin tissue, taut over our face, provides us with our own unique features. If we put things together, therefore, each person, each community, and each nation owes it to humanity to cultivate the truths that comprise their individual history with respect towards that of others. And this makes our planet a wonderful place of diversity. However, when wishful thinking displaces the truth and allies with corrupt politicians serving dubious geopolitical interests, historical tissues are torn apart, causing a chain reaction of events which will eventually result in the deformation and decomposition of the organism known as human civilization. And if the decomposition of an organism produces stench, nothing else reeks of so much blight as the global recognition of a people illicitly claiming the historical prestige and territory and identity of their neighbors. And here, I am referring to the southern Slavs to the north of us, who appeared in the northern region of Greek Macedonia in the 7th century AD, about 1,000 years after Alexander the Great, and are now claiming to be the heirs to the before Common Era identity, history, and language of this Hellenic kingdom of Macedonia, the birthplace of the Greek king and conqueror known as Alexander the Great. As absurd as this may seem to one acquainted with a elementary historical knowledge of the region, what is highly unsettling for the future of Western civilization, and Europe in particular, is that despite the petition signed by 367 mostly non-Greek academics worldwide in order to protect and preserve Macedonian history, which is a large chunk of Greek history, from the irredentist claims of the Slavic state of Skopje, prospectors and corrupt politicians of sorts, backed by international organizations such as NATO, have severed the historical states, the historical region, and the connecting tissues of this region, thus setting a very dangerous precedent for potential rogue states in the future to follow the same example at the expense of global peace. My dear Western brethren, we are what is left of the Greeks who established all the foundations of Western civilization, from democracy and literature to all the arts and sciences, without which your world would revert to the Bronze Age in all sectors, and without whose concepts and vocabulary you would be rendered incapable of even uttering the words school or telephone. We are what is left of the Greeks, who, since antiquity, have always lived in a state of material poverty, as our human and material resources have always been spent defending the borders and culture of Europe and the West at large against the backward Asian hordes of Eastern mysticism, whether it was against the tyranny of the Persians, Thermopylae, which you have made so many movies of, and Marathon, in honor of which you run races, or the expansionist backwardness of the Mongol Turk that we held at bay until the rest of Europe was strong enough to resist. Otherwise, you would all have somebody by the likes of Erdogan in government. And we are today bearing the brunt of yet another invasion, that of Islam in the guise of refugees. We are the ones whose Byzantine scholars, fleeing the fall of Constantinople to these Mongol hordes, established communities in northern Italy, which wrested you, the West, from the Dark Ages and lit the torch of the Greek-inspired Renaissance, so that you can now take inventory of its beauty in your lush museums and your Greek life universities. And today, we are the ones who will once more rise to the occasion against this insidious New World Order that wants to destroy European history and its indigenous peoples by creating all kinds of friction and unrest between us. And by this, I appeal to our northern neighbors not to allow themselves to fall into this trap, asking them to embrace their own unique Balkan identity. For anything less will mean just another time bomb in our region, and history has proven that. Bedraggled, we survived over 300 years of Turkish oppression, while you, Westerners, enjoyed the fruits of our labors and are now in a position to sneer at us as your lazy southern cousins who cannot pay back what we have borrowed. Granted, the mismanagement of our country by corrupt politicians over the past 40 years has definitely thrown us into the greedy arms of international loan sharks. However, if you, my Western brethren, have any sense of self-respect, please answer the simple question of how you can pay us back for all that we have bequeathed to you. And if you have been led to believe at your universities that we are far cries from our classical forefathers, I urge you to read the great American writer's novel, Henry Miller's The Colossus of Varousi, to realize that the Greek spirit has left its imprint throughout the West is more accessible in the front porch of a poor Greek's house than behind the grand facades and the contents of any library or any Greek-pillared European museum. Over 90% of the diction found in Homer's Iliad and Odyssey is still uttered and spoken used in our everyday speech. And our living tongue still sheds light on the deeper meaning of things, such as the word history, which I have just analyzed for you. Every Macedonian stone unearthed by the archaeological hoe bears unmistakable inscriptions of this, our distinct Greek language, putting paid and invalid to any claims, any invalid Slavic claims to Macedonian as their language and culture. Yet, as ingrates today, the Western world is passively sitting back, observing the decimation of its motherland, Greece, the cradle of its own civilization, killing its own memory. My Western brothers and sisters, I urge you to rise with us against the World Bank-based globalists who are killing your memory, our memory, setting a dangerous precedent which may eventually turn our planet's intelligent life forms into a quagmire of consumer-minded, smartphone-controlled idiots with no true ethnic hurts or national identities beyond Hollywood-inspired scenarios. We see this happening amongst our youth. It is really heart-wrenching to try to answer the question that a Greek Macedonian boy asked his father the other day, on finding out that corrupt politicians from Greece have allowed the Slavs to call themselves Macedonians and heirs to Alexander the Great. Dad, if those Slavophones are Macedonians, who or what am I? I say shame, real bitter shame, on the international community, which is allowing historical memory, the cornerstone of human civilization, to be mismanaged by opportunists. If we do not take a collective stance as humanity against this absurdity and many others that will follow, we will have truly experienced the demise of the civilized world. Because when you think about it, the loss of memory always precedes the death of an organism suffering from Alzheimer's. Thank you for listening.